Mara, you dirty tease. So I've received a lot of messages, emails, comments, and concerns over the last couple of days on Mara stock and really the last couple of weeks as Mara has been underperforming Bitcoin by a lot. And in today's video, I want to clear up some of those concerns and give you my updated thoughts on the Mara of the Mara. For context, we originally called out Lovely Mara in the cycle at around just under $15 a share back on December 5th, 2023. And the whole thesis had to do with Bitcoin ETF approval, a continued Bitcoin bull market, and the historics that suggest that Bitcoin would continue going up both before and after halving. And she did successfully break out new resistance after new resistance until hitting $34 at the end of last month. But then as she was selling off, I said, hey, you know what, folks? I see her as a dip buy heading into halving still. And she continued to sell off to that $20 key level, broke it momentarily, and then headed right back over it. However, since she's been struggling to get new momentum thus far, today was an okay day for Mara, but overall momentum just hasn't been able to come back for Mara despite what Bitcoin has been doing. However, with all the comments and concerns I got on this stock, combined with the fact that halving is just a few weeks away on April 20th. Well, now is a very, very important time to talk about the stock, and that's what we're going to be doing. Timestamps down below. As always, you should never buy or sell a stock just because we talk about it in a video. You need to be going off and doing your own due diligence on all ideas presented here on the channel. Okay, let's start with the first point here. So Mara versus Bitcoin. There's been a huge discrepancy between the increases in Bitcoin and the increases in Mara. Mara's high of the cycle happened on February 28th, and BTC topped out on March 13th. So what's going on here, and is there an inefficiency? Well, on February 28th, Mara reported earnings, and on that earnings, she said something that scared shareholders about the D word, the evil D word, dilution. Now, Mara did report some huge wins on that report. They increased their hash rate by 253%. Bitcoin production increased by 210%. Revenues increased by 229%. Net income improved to a record $261.2 million. So on and so forth. I mean, it was a very, very big winning report. However, this was trampled over by the D word. For example, page 34 of their SEC filing says, quote, our stockholders have experienced dilution through the issuance of our common stock under the 2022 ATM and the 2023 ATM, and in the event we sell any shares of our common stock under the 2024 ATM, our stockholders will continue to experience dilution. ATM, of course, referring to at the market offerings, which of course is selling you shares at current market prices. And a following filing from Lovely Mara says this: Mara has a sales agreement supplement covering the offering, issuance, and sale by Mara of up to a maximum of $1.5 billion worth of shares of common stock. So this filing officially registered their ability to offer that massive amount of shares at any point in the future. And so now they have this $1.5 billion shelf that they can unload at any time. And given Mara's history, well, it's pretty clear that they are going to unload it at some point. And given that the company is valued at about $5.54 billion in total market capital, I mean a $1.5 billion capacity to offer shares is indeed a big threat. So if you want to know the primary reason why Mara has underperformed and lost track with BTC since the February 28th reporting, well, that is why. Now, the historical context with Mara is that she has traditionally been very, very dilution heavy. This is not the half of it. At the end of December 2020, she had around 63 million shares. Now she's at 265 million. During both uptrends and downtrends, she's raised tons and tons of money. There's no doubt about that. So now the following question has to be, okay, well, are Mara shareholders actually getting any results for all of these offerings, all of this dilution, or is Mara just an enrichment device for insiders and a cash burner? Well, I've seen a lot of people concerned that it's the former of the two options, but let me show you some key performance metrics to focus on here. Number one, hash rate. So Mara's installed hash rate at the last report was 28.7. We started covering her for the first time a couple days into 2021, and by March of 2021, she was reporting a 1.4 exahashes per second rate. So going from 1.4 exahashes per second to 28.7, that's a pretty big jump. That's a more than 20x. Now, of course, network difficulty gets harder over time. That's how the whole Bitcoin mining system works. So you have to increase your hash rate in order to stay competitive. But she's really been increasing it. When we were presented on Mara back in 2021, the big argument that bears were making, that short sellers were making, is that she's spending way too much money to invest in all this infrastructure to become a major Bitcoin miner. That's ridiculous. You should not buy Mara. She's spending way too much money. These mining devices, they cost too much. She should just gut herself and go bankrupt already. But again, all of those miners that she bought, all of those hundreds of press releases that freaked out investors because she was spending all this money, well, that is what set her up to be a big winner today. Anyways, going back for a second to the hash rates, if you're having a hard time visualizing the hash rates here, let's look at the competitors for a second. So Riot, which is also a pretty good company, is at a 12.4 exahashes per second hash rate. Cypher Mining is at 7.4. CleanSpark, another great company, which we spoke about yesterday, is at 16. Again, Mara right now is at 28.7, so pretty impressive. And Mara is saying that she expects her hash rates to get to 50 by 2025. Now, what about traditional business business metrics. You look at their year-over-year numbers, well, revenue is up 451% year-over-year. Net income is up 157% year-over-year. Diluted EPS is up 123% year-over-year. Net profit margin up 110% year-over-year. Operating income up 526% year-over-year. Net change in cash up 429% year-over-year, and this is for quarter ending December 2023. And we don't even have the data yet for Q1 of 2024, which was the hottest quarter for Bitcoin, the hottest one it saw in years. You're easily going to see beats across the board with that report. Now, what about in terms of her Bitcoin holdings? Lovely Mara likes to retain a lot of Bitcoin on her balance sheet. At the last report, she had 16,930 BTC on her balance sheet. If BTC is trading at 70K, that means she has about $1.2 billion in Bitcoin alone, which is around a fifth of her overall market cap, just in straight up Bitcoin. Now, what else has Mara been doing with all the money she raised? Well, namely acquisitions. This was released on March 15th. Marathon Digital Holdings enters definitive agreement to acquire 200 megawatt Bitcoin mining data center adjacent to a wind farm. Mara, one of the world's largest publicly traded Bitcoin miners and a leader in supporting and securing the Bitcoin ecosystem, has entered into a definitive purchase agreement to acquire Applied Digital Corporation's Bitcoin mining data center in Garden City, Texas, with a nameplate capacity of 200 megawatts for a purchase price of $87.3 million. Marathon will pay the purchase price in cash from its balance sheet. Okay, so what exactly is the benefit of purchasing this data center from Applied Digital? What is the benefit here? Marathon was already doing operations at the site, but this full acquisition is a very, very, very useful and strategic investment. Mara expects to expand its presence at the site in 2024 by an additional 100 megawatts to accommodate a total of 200 megawatts of capacity dedicated exclusively to Mara's Bitcoin operations, and this transaction is also expected to reduce the cost per coin of Marathon's current operations at the site by approximately 20%. This is an example of Mara going and spending about $90 million to acquire something that is going to provide a lot more than $90 million worth of value to shareholders. So if Mara has to go and raise more capital to pay for further acquisitions like this in the future, is that really, really a bad thing for shareholders? Is that really going to be a negative for shareholders? Certainly in the short term, but not over the medium to long term. Obviously, from a momentum trading standpoint, this is a bit of a nightmare, and that's why we always talk about risk management, stop losses, so on and so forth, riding the trend and letting the trend be your friend until the trend bends. But overall, if you're looking at this from a company standpoint, they're doing a good job here. Here's another similar example for you. On December 19th, Mara entered into a definitive agreement to acquire multiple Bitcoin mining sites for $179 million. Quote, with the acquisition of these sites, Marathon will take ownership of approximately 390 megawatts of operational capacity, 82 megawatts, 21% of which are currently vacant and available for immediate expansion, 240 blah, 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 blah. The transaction is expected to reduce the cost per coin of Marathon's current operations at these sites by approximately 30%. In the near term, the company intends to fill 82 megawatts of capacity currently available at the sites with its own miners. The company intends to use available capacity for its own miners to further increase its hash rate and maximize operational efficiencies. Okay, so bigger picture here, Mara made a ton of investments heading into Bitcoin halving in order to prepare for Bitcoin halving. And so if you're wondering if Mara is being well managed, you got to ask yourself, was it a good or a bad idea for Mara to prepare heavily ahead of the biggest bull market for Bitcoin that we've seen in years? Q1 has been phenomenal. This was the time for Mara to invest, and she's done that. Now she's leaving the door open to raise more capital for further investments. And we haven't even mentioned a lot of the other things she's done, like the major firmware update she announced a couple days ago, the new two-phase cooling system, which can enable up to a 60% reduction in cooling costs. And there's a million other companies in the mining space that you can compare Mara to, and quite frankly, just Mara comes out ahead in my view. Now, CleanSpark we talked about yesterday, that's another crypto miner that is excellent. And the big benefit of CleanSpark is, quite frankly, it has the momentum right now. And as a trading channel, I like to focus a lot on momentum stocks. A lot of the time, you can either buy a stock that's a really, really good deal, which means it's dipped and it might dip for a while, or you could buy a stock that might be getting pricey, but it is currently in a momentum cycle. Right now, Mara is in a breather, CleanSpark is not. Mara is a really, really good deal. CleanSpark's a little bit more pricey. Two different types of plays for two different types of focuses, both great crypto miners. Mara still, I believe, is the better of the two, but in terms of momentum right now, CleanSpark's got the better momentum. We'll see if Mara can get bought up quickly enough. But anyways, bigger picture look. I mean, offerings suck. I get it, but it's hard for me to argue that Mara should be pushed aside, should be forgotten, should be sent to the short seller hell because of this potential offering. We don't know when she's going to dump. We don't know how much she's going to dump. Usually companies, and Mara historically, have dumped in very, very small chunks, because if you dump all at once, I mean, you're going to raise very little capital. Price is just going to be going down as you dump, and your shareholders shareholders are going to be pissed. The fact of the matter is, though, bigger picture, Mara has used offerings successfully. Mara has raised a lot of capital since 2021, but she has a lot to show for it. And I've only given you a few big examples and bigger picture points. But here on the channel, we are no stranger to Mara's cycles. She teases, she squeezes, she teases, she squeezes. We originally called out Mara as a buy on January 3rd of 2021, and she proceeded to run from the low 13s to over $80 a share. Then the crypto winter happened and she dove to $3. This cycle, we called her out at about $14.78 back in December, and she ran to over $30 and now did a dive back to 21. But you're already starting to see a lot of people say the same thing. Mara is a scam. She's managed poorly. You're starting to see a lot of people say that. But the thing is, folks, that crypto mining, Mara's business, is a very incredibly volatile business. The benefit is the volatility, but that's also the drawback. You got to be willing to trade Mara. You can't just randomly buy and hold and then hope that all of a sudden you're just going to magically be in the next bull cycle and know when to get out. No, you have to make sure that you see the momentum, you ride the trend, but you also have a tight stop loss. You're able to lock in profits. Right now, she's at 21. My belief is she's going to go up to a new cycle high either right after halving or in the coming weeks after halving. But let's just say for a second she went up to 30, 35 tomorrow and you're in it and you just made massive gains. Well, if you don't have a plan, it doesn't even matter that you made those gains because you're just going to lose it all on the next cycle down when she hits 20 or even $15. If you look at Mara's historical chart, she goes up and down. She teases, she squeezes, she teases, she squeezes. In the next crypto winter, she's going to do a teasing cycle that'll probably take her down another 80%. That is how these types of companies trade. A lot of people, they look at crypto miners and like, you know what, that is too risky. I don't want to touch that. And that is totally fine. That's totally acceptable. I actually encourage people to say, you know what, if that risk doesn't fit my risk tolerance, I'm going to go ahead and run the other way. But for folks that want these massive potential gains, you got to be willing to deal with the massive potential losses. And you got to understand that, okay, wait a second. If I just have a stop loss that's 5 to 10%, if I just have recognition that Mara goes like this, then I can come out at the end of the day very successful. Mara is a stock that is ripe for traders, but it's not a good stock for people that like to buy and forget. If you want to buy and forget, S&P 500. If you want to buy and forget, maybe one of the Mag 7 stocks like an Apple or a Microsoft. But if you want to trade and you want rapid movements, well, Mara is one of the best ones out there, especially because of the catalyst next month. Anyways, that is my take. I could be completely wrong. I've been wrong before. We've covered Mara for years. She's had many up and down cycles. Every time she has any kind of down cycle, we get a lot of people that are upset because we talk so much about Mara, right? And that's totally understandable. But when it comes to your own individual situation, you got to be thinking for yourself. You got to be doing your own due diligence. You got to be thinking, okay, well, does the risk make sense? She goes up and down. How can I trade that? Is it possible for me to trade it? How can I lock in profit? So on and so forth. Anyways, that's my take. Have a good one, folks, and we'll see you in the next video.